In the past few years, we've seen some truly staggering cyber attacks. Big names, high-profile organizations just shaken to their core.
Yeah, healthcare, tech giants, massive data breaches.
Exactly. And when you dig into almost every single case, what's the chilling common thread?
Identity.
Identity. It was misused, misconfigured, or flat out compromised. It's just become so incredibly clear that, identity is the new perimeter, especially in this cloud-first world we're all living in.
Mm-hmm.
So this deep dive, it's all about navigating that really complex, constantly shifting landscape. We've gathered insights from all sorts of places, new industry reports, expert interviews, even Sika fact sheets and detailed guides.
Real mix.
Yeah. And our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to help you understand the threats facing digital identities now, really explore these challenges like identity sprawl and the dangerous blind spots that come with it.
And then get practical.
And then distill it down into actionable strategies, things you can actually use to protect identities in today's, let's face it, pretty complex IT environments.
Sounds good.
Okay, but before we really dive in, we absolutely have to thank our sponsor. This deep dive just wouldn't be possible without the support of www.cisomarketplace.com.
Right.
It's a fantastic central hub for cybersecurity insights, solutions, really designed to help cybersecurity decision makers like you stay ahead of the curve. Definitely worth checking out.
It really is a fundamental shift, more than just changing the buzzwords. For decades, security was all about that strong network perimeter, the firewall, that sort of hardened shell.
The castle wall model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you were inside, generally you were trusted. But think about it now. Cloud services everywhere, SaaS.
Remote work, people on their own laptops sometimes.
Precisely. Unmanaged devices, all that B2B collaboration.
Yeah.
The old model just doesn't map anymore. Your people, your apps, your critical data, they're way outside that old network is.
Your location doesn't cut it.
Not on its own, no.
Yeah.
Security can't be based just on location or device anymore. So the control point we can still manage and, crucially, audit. Well, that's identity. It's the new logical place, really the only logical place, to enforce security and protect your assets.
That makes a lot of sense. So if identity is the new battleground, just how big is this problem? I mean, are we talking isolated incidents or is this widespread? What's the data showing us?
Oh, it's absolutely widespread. Systemic, really.
Yeah.
The numbers are pretty stark. One recent report mentioned something like 9 out of 10 organizations. 9 out of 10 reported a successful identity-centric breach.
Wow, 9 out of 10.
Yeah. And when you look at detections overall, 80% are actually malware-free. Meaning it's not about malicious code. It's about clever identity techniques, stealing credentials, escalating privileges, that sort of thing.
So exploiting the identities themselves.
Exactly. And across the board, 80% of all breaches leverage compromised identities somewhere along the line, often as that initial way in.
And it's not just one-and-done attacks either.
No, not at all. Over half, 51%, said they were hit by phishing or phishing attacks multiple times. It just shows this persistent vulnerability attackers are hammering away at.
That's a grim picture. And then you throw AI into the mix. It feels like it cuts both ways, doesn't it? Attackers get smarter tools, but defenders do too.
Absolutely. That's the fascinating part, right? AI is arming both sides. Yeah. Attackers use it for, super realistic deepfakes for phishing, automated credential stuffing, getting quite sophisticated.
Right.
But defenders are also using AI for better detection, faster response, predicting threats. But there's this third dimension that's emerging. And it's often overlooked.
Okay.
Businesses are embedding what's called agentic AI. Think AI that acts on its own, booking things, interacting with customers, managing cloud resources, without a human directly telling it what to do each time.
Autonomous agents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this creates entirely new identity risks because these AI agents, they need your own identities, managed secured identities to function within the company.
So it's not just human identities anymore.
Not even close. The scale is just staggering. Machine identities now outnumber human identities by more than 80 to 1.
80 to 1.
Yeah. So the key insight here is, securing human identity. That's not enough anymore. We're dealing with this massive new attack surface of machine identities. Each one needs its own security.
Okay, so that brings us to this term that keeps popping up in the sources. Identity sprawl. It sounds messy, definitely not good for security. Can you sort of paint a picture of what that actually looks like inside a company, and why is it such a big deal?
Yeah, identity sprawl it's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
A tangled, unmanageable mess. It happens when your user identities get fragmented across lots and lots of different isolated systems or directories that don't talk to each other.
Like different address books for the same people?
Kind of, yeah. Think a dozen different systems, all managed separately, no single source of truth. And cloud adoption just pours fuel on that fire, right? Because every new SaaS app, every cloud service, often creates its own little identity silo. But the real kicker isn't just the fragmentation. It's that this sprawl means you've lost control. Every new app becomes a potential backdoor you might not even know about. Your perimeter isn't just dissolving, it's multiplying into hundreds, maybe thousands of unmanaged entry points.
Wow. And the consequences.
Huge inefficiencies, for one. But more seriously, it makes enforcing consistent access control almost impossible. Leads to unauthorized access. Monitoring user activity, a nightmare. And then you get orphaned accounts.
Accounts left behind after someone leaves.
Exactly. Accounts that are still active, still valid, long after the employee is gone. It's like leaving your old apartment key under the mat indefinitely. Easy target. All this just dramatically increases the attack surface and makes compliance a huge headache.
And I guess a big driver of this sprawl is the sheer number of SaaS apps companies use now, plus this whole shadow IT thing, where teams just sign up for stuff on their own.
That is spot on. The average organization uses over 1,000 SaaS apps now. Think about that.
1,000.
Yeah. And many of those are brought in by teams directly, bypassing IT approval. That's your shadow IT. Something like 75% of organizations have had shadow IT incidents.
Can you give an example of what that might look like?
Sure. I heard one where a marketing team signed up for some new AI writing tool. Seemed harmless, right? But it wasn't vetted. And it started scraping sensitive customer data without anyone in security knowing. That's the danger.
Right. Hidden risks.
Hidden and serious. The consequences are this profound lack of visibility. You can't enforce security policies if you don't know the app exists. Incident response gets crippled because you don't know all the potential entry points, and the data backs it up. Organizations with poor SaaS visibility are 30% more likely to have a data breach. It's a direct correlation.
And this lack of visibility creates these identity blind spots, right? Even where companies think they're covered.
Exactly. Even with controls like single sign-on or SSO, there are gaps. A huge number, 68% of organizations report that a lot of their SaaS apps are accessed directly, bypassing the corporate SSO.
So going around the main security checkpoint.
Pretty much. Like having a secret backdoor everyone uses. Then you got the nightmare of shared accounts, multiple people using one login. How do you track suspicious activity then?
Impossible.
Nearly. And finally, the massive risk from weak or leaked passwords. Over half, 55% of companies have had incidents where employees use passwords found on the dark web. And 42% admitted using personal emails and passwords for work apps.
Mixing personal and work credentials.
Yeah. You connect all these dots, the SSO bypass, shared accounts, weak passwords, and these blind spots become wide open doors for attackers, often for months or even years before anyone notices.
And we've seen the devastating results in real-world breaches, haven't we? I mean, you think about Panera Bread, that was shadow IT exposing customer data. Anthem Security at unsanctioned devices and apps were the way in. More recently, Change Healthcare got hit through compromised credentials for a SaaS app that didn't have MFA.
A crucial missing layer.
Absolutely. And then there was the Okta hack credentials stolen from a personal browser profile. And that Microsoft Russian hack started with password spraying against a test account without 2FA. These aren't hypotheticals, they're direct consequences.
Which brings us squarely to solutions.
Yeah.
And the absolute baseline has to be multi-factor authentication, MFA.
Okay, define that quickly for us.
Sure. MFA is just a security control requiring users to provide 2 or more different types of proof of identity to log in. Something like a password.
Something you have?
Like a phone or a security key, yeah. Or something you wear, like a fingerprint or face scan. It just makes it much, much harder for attackers to get in, even if they steal a password. It's fundamental.
But you mentioned not all MFA is created equal. That seems really important.
Hugely important, and this is a critical takeaway.
Correct.
Relying on weaker forms of MFA, like SMS text messages, isn't just less secure. It can give you a false sense of security.
How?
Because attackers know how to break it. CISO is the cybersecurity agency. They have a clear hierarchy. The absolute best, the gold standard, is phishing-resistant MFA. Think FIDO security keys, WebAuthn, smart cards.
Why are they resistant?
Because they're designed to beat common attacks like phishing, push bombing, where they spam you with login approvals hoping you accidentally hit yes.
Yeah. Annoying.
And also things like SS7 flaws that let them intercept texts, or SIM swapping where they hijack your phone number. Phishing-resistant MFA stops those.
Okay. What's next down the list?
Below that, you have app-based authenticators, especially those with number matching where the app shows you a number you have to type in.
Yeah.
That helps against push bombing. But standard app push notifications without number matching, still vulnerable.
And the weakest?
Right at the bottom, really a last resort, are SMS texts or voice calls. Highly susceptible to phishing. Those SS7 hacks, SIM swaps. Attackers are actively exploiting these weaknesses. So choosing the right MFA, the strongest you can implement, isn't just technical, it's strategic.
Okay, so strong MFA is crucial for regular users. But what about those super sensitive accounts? The admin accounts, the ones with the keys to the kingdom. How do we protect privileged access?
Yeah, that's where privileged access management, or PAM, becomes essential. PAM is really the whole process, securing, managing, monitoring access to your most critical systems and data by those users with elevated rights.
And the core idea is?
Least privilege.
Always.
Granting only the absolute minimum access needed for a specific task for the shortest time possible. PM isn't new, but it's evolved a lot. From just managing passwords for shared accounts to full session monitoring, robust controls supporting hybrid and cloud.
Right.
And a key, really transformative development within PAM is this idea of just-in-time access JIT and even zero-standing privilege, or ZSP.
Okay, break those down. JIT.
Think of JIT like getting a temporary key for one specific room in a building instead of a master key for everywhere all the time. Permissions are granted only when needed for limited time. It massively shrinks the window for attackers.
Makes sense. And zero-standing privilege. ZSP.
ZSP takes it even further. It asks, what if that privileged account didn't even exist when it wasn't being used?
Wow.
Yeah. It's about creating privilege on demand. Literally spinning up an account or elevating permissions only when required, and then tearing it down immediately after.
That sounds powerful.
It's incredibly effective. It shuts down lateral movement attackers moving sideways through your network, isolates problems, makes it exponentially harder for them to escalate privileges or move undetected. There are different flavors, like ephemeral access, temporary accounts, temporary elevation, boosting existing accounts briefly, or justification-based access, requiring a reason.
That does sound incredibly powerful for defense, but thinking practically, how tough is it for companies to actually adopt something like zero-standing privilege, or even JIT? Are the hurdles more technical or cultural?
That's a really good question. Because the security benefits are crystal clear, but yeah, the transition isn't always a walk in the park. Often the biggest hurdles aren't the tech itself, but the culture. It demands a real shift in mindset, moving away from always-on access, which people get used to, towards access only when absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Users, even some IT folks, are comfortable with standing privileges.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a change management piece.
Getting people on board.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And technically, yes, it needs deep integration. It has to talk to your identity provider, your cloud platform, your on-prem directories. Implementing JIT and ZSP well means you need a strong, centralized identity and access management system that can orchestrate all these dynamic permissions smoothly everywhere. It takes planning, for sure, but the security payoff is huge.
Okay, so bringing it all together then, this is where it gets really interesting, right? How do organizations actually tackle this whole tangled mess, the sprawl, the dynamic access needs? What are the big picture strategic solutions?
Right, to really get a handle on identity sprawl, you need those strategic, holistic approaches. First up, identity governance and administration, or IGA solutions. These are crucial.
Oh, they do.
They give you centralized control and, importantly, visibility over who has access to what across all your systems. They automate the whole identity lifecycle, onboarding changes, and critically, offboarding. Yeah. Helps you find and kill those orphaned accounts we talked about.
Okay, so control and visibility. What else?
Second is identity orchestration. You can think of this like an abstraction layer. It sits on top and unifies all your different identity systems, the APIs, the data models, the access policies.
Like a conductor for identity.
That's a great analogy. It creates this consistent identity fabric across everything, making sure your policies are enforced the same way everywhere, whether it's some old legacy app or the newest cloud service.
Got it. And the third?
Third is identity consolidation and IAM centralization. This is fundamentally about streamlining. Reducing the number of places identity is managed, ideally getting down to a single platform or at least a central system that pushes out consistent identity data and policies everywhere. It just drastically cuts complexity and boosts your control.
Those sound like the essential building blocks. So for organizations listening right now thinking, okay, where do I even start with this? What are some practical, concrete steps they can take? Like today or this week?
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming. The key is to start smart, prioritize. First, lock down your most critical assets and privileged accounts. Your domain admins, enterprise admins, DBAs, those powerful cloud service accounts.
Your crown jewel.
Exactly. They're target number one. Second, really embrace granular access control. Move beyond giving broad permissions. Use role-based access control, ARB-ADC, attribute-based access control, ABAC. Make sure people only have the precise access they need for their job. Nothing more.
Minimum necessary access.
Minimum necessary.
Yeah.
Third, set up clear policies for any temporary access. Who can ask for it? For how long? What's the approval process? Document it.
Yeah.
And absolutely vital, implement comprehensive auditing and monitoring. You need to know not just who logged in, but what they did afterwards. Track everything. Use a strong credential management system, rotate credentials automatically, and enforce that strong phishing-resistant MFA everywhere you possibly can.
Makes sense.
And finally, and this gets overlooked so often, educate your employees. They're your first line of defense. They need to understand why SSO matters, why MFA is crucial, what PAM is, and importantly, how to spot suspicious stuff like phishing emails. It's about building a security culture, not just deploying tools.
These are definitely not just theories. They're really practical steps you can start taking right now to seriously improve your security. And if you were looking for where to begin, or maybe you want to dive deeper into understanding these critical tools and services, remember to check out www.cisomarketplace.com. They've got resources specifically tailored for cybersecurity decision makers. A really fantastic resource for this kind of thing.
Definitely.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, I think the core message is just clearer than ever, isn't it? Identity isn't just about logging in anymore.
Not at all.
It's the absolute fundamental control point for cybersecurity today. In this distributed cloud-centric world, securing the who is just way more effective than trying to secure the where.
That sums it up perfectly.
We've looked at how pervasive these identity breaches are, the sort of insidious challenges of identity sprawl and those dangerous blind spots, but also the powerful strategies, from phishing-resistant MFA right through to zero standing privilege, that can genuinely fortify your defenses. It really is time for everyone to take a hard look at their own digital identities, their systems, and, well, take action.
And maybe a final thought to leave people with. As AI keeps accelerating, creating all these new machine identities, new attack vectors we haven't even thought of yet, what fundamental shifts in our thinking beyond just the tools are we going to need to truly secure these increasingly complex digital ecosystems we're building?
That is definitely a thought-provoking question to end on. Something for all of us to keep mulling over. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on this deep dive into identity security. We really hope you feel more informed, maybe a bit more equipped to tackle these challenges head on. Join us next time for another deep dive into the information that matters most to you.